Welcome to the Music Business Buddy, the podcast decoding how the modern music industry actually works. I'm Johnny Amos, industry consultant, artist manager, producer, educator, and author of The Music Business for Music Creators. Every Wednesday, I explore the ideas, technology, and industry shifts shaping the future of music. This show helps creators navigate the rapidly changing business of music. Hello everybody, hope you're doing well. I am really excited about the guest that I've got in today. I'll be honest with you, I've been really excited for weeks knowing that I was going to talk to him because he's such a fascinating guy. I'm a big fan of his music as well, which is also exciting, and he is a very, very, very insightful, generous, kind, warm human being by the name of Nathan Duvall. So some of you might know his work from Disciples, which is a London-based electronic trio, or some of you might know his solo work, Duvall. So hits like How Deep Is Your Love, On My Mind. He's as a music creator, he's got credits for the likes of Calvin Harris, Little Mix, Craig David, many, many more. So as a music creator, he has done extremely well. He's very successful, sold millions of records and billions of streams. And we do talk a little bit about that today. But what we really mainly focus on is another thing, right, which is SyncIt. And this is an area that I am particularly interested in, as you well know, right, is sync licensing. Now, what Nathan has built is a very interesting infrastructure to be able to license music at scale. And SyncIt is a company which is kind of, I would say, a bit of a maverick model. He's working with some big brands, L'Oreal, McLaren, Formula One, football teams like Real Madrid, all sorts of different things. He's created a kind of niche number of products within this line, which is SyncIt. Now, SyncIt is doing something which is kind of removing a lot of the traditional barriers, let's say, of traditional sync licensing, but doing it in a way that remunerates fairly to everybody involved. There is AI built into it, and he has a great deal of respect for that, and also for the rights of music creators and rights holders everywhere. I'm going to hand over to the interview because he explains it all a lot better than I do, right? But have a listen to this, everybody. Nathan, welcome to the Music Business Buddy. It's really good to have you here, and it's great to meet you. How are you?
Oh, I'm fantastic. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited for this talk.
Likewise, Nate. Likewise. So let's go straight into it because there's so much to cover. So let's think about rights ownership, right? It's still one of the most kind of painful parts of the sync process, even now in 2026. And there's fragmented PROs and disputed splits and long weeks of back and forth between different parties, even on just a single placement in order to sometimes just get it cleared. But you've built SyncIt specifically to solve that kind of problem. What has surprised you when you started to pull together all of that ownership data at scale?
How sporadic it is across multiple different sources, and the fact that there are too many paywalls behind specific information as well, or the fact that there's certain PROs that don't allow you to kind of scrape the data that should be public knowledge. I think that's probably our biggest hurdle, because what we want to do is just have one source of truth where everyone comes to and can understand who owns what, and at what percentage and in what territory. And before you can license a record to adverts, TV, gaming, or film, you need to have those bits of information collated so you can attack all the rights owners at one time. And so even before licensing, you need to fix that part. So there's multiple parts that need fixing. We started our company just at the end going, right, we want to create a marketplace where you can license your record to adverts, TV, gaming, film. And we're realizing that, well, there's a few steps before that where you need to try and get all the information of what those songs are, who represents those songs, and the contact information for those people who own those songs.
Wow, that's so interesting. There are okay. So if you think about music supervisors, there, right? So there's quite a lot of music supervisors who are extremely good at what they do on a creative level, but then there's the other part to it, where they may not even know what you know about that information that you're finding
Yeah.
out. And it makes you so crucial to so many people. I mean, that traditional kind of sync model was built around, sort of like a handful, let's say, of like sort of high value placements, like a TV spot,
Yeah.
a film trailer, a
Mhm.
campaign, But you're now working with the likes of FIFA and McLaren and like Real Madrid, the football team, and those aren't sync briefs. These are fan experiences, right? How did you
Yeah.
end up building a product for sports? And what does that tell us about where kind of music and brand activation are actually sort of heading towards?
Well, music has always been synonymous with sport. It's the biggest driver of emotion and fan engagement, and always has been from the beginning of time. Specifically coined from the Europeans, especially the British as well, with the chants. Um, but there's no real ownership surrounding that moment between the club that they're speaking about or the fan themselves. So what we've done is we created a platform called Phantom within our SyncIt ecosystem, which allows fans to generate um, different chants, different anthems about their specific player that they love, about their specific country. It could be a match day. It could be a kit drop. I mean, the list goes on and on for why and when you need music. And this is the introduction to people who would not normally use the technology we use to create music for the masses. They're able to now use it. So that's the beauty of having AI generative music. So we've put it all in a nice bow, wraps up, called Phantom, which FIFA are deploying towards the end of this year for the Under-17s World Cup. It'll be the first of its kind. It's the first ever fan engagement tool that exists, to my knowledge. And yeah, we're really excited. We started speaking with FIFA about a year ago, and they got back in touch at the beginning of this year saying, yeah, they'd like to go forward and give this a trial. So yeah, let's see how it goes.
Wow. God, well done you for making that happen. I can't think of anybody that's ever tried to do that before, and I'm now wondering why. But it doesn't matter. You've done it. That's trailblazing, mate. That is.
Well, yeah,
That's
it happened by accident. We were speaking to football teams about sprucing up their anthems, like, having producers go in and recreate what they consider their song. And then we hit a brick wall because some songs that are considered, say, a Chelsea song aren't actually owned by Chelsea. So we got in with their marketing team and the head of marketing, and they said, well, is there any way we can just create our own music? And we thought, if Chelsea need records and they want to use songs, then I'm sure all the other clubs across the globe want to use songs. So then we got in touch with FIFA, and that's how we created Phantom.
wow. Wow. By the way, what a brilliant name, Phantom.
And we trademarked it a couple of weeks ago as well. So
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah,
Wow.
we want
Yeah.
everyone to say I just created a Phantom.
Wow. Some of the best ideas are often the kind of like the simplest names, aren't they? And
Absolutely.
that's a fine example of it. That's amazing. Wow. Um, the let's think about like the creator economy, let's say, right? So,
Yeah.
it needs music at scale, in fact, at a scale that traditional licensing was never really kind of designed for, right? Millions of placements, not thousands, right? That's what we're kind of
Yeah.
starting to build towards, right? And you're building an AI infrastructure that actually, across discovery and metadata and rights, but uh, let's go for a slightly harder question on this, right? Is the music industry actually ready for that type of infrastructure, or are the labels and PROs and the publishers, kind of still the biggest blocker for that to work properly?
I think what's going to happen, they have to be. They have to be ready for an infrastructure that meets the demand of today. Predominantly right now, it takes too long to license a song. The information's fragmented. There are too many people to talk to. The birth of AI and generative AI is a problem. Not for the individual creator, but it's a problem for our industry, because we work with massive brands. We work with L'Oreal. L'Oreal don't have time to wait for you to license to get a song licensed. Their product or project needs to come out when they say it needs to come out. If they're dilly-dallying with trying to find someone who hasn't answered an email. They're just going to move on to the next. And we've created a rod for our own back in that sense, because as I said before, the information is too fragmented, too many people to talk to. The terms and conditions, like, the usage is an issue as well. Like, only able to use it for 6 months in this territory. Can you only use the chorus? If you want to use the verse as well, it costs more. Like, let's stop. It's just nonsense. And what we're doing is we're pricing ourselves out of the game completely. So unfortunately, we do have massive brands that we work with that are indifferent to whether it's AI generated or human made. And that's just the reality of it. The most important thing is the music. The music helps tell the story that they need to tell. It doesn't matter where it comes from. There are certain brands that care more about the artist, because obviously if you match a song and a product, it's about the artist and the demographic they reach. That will never change. That's fantastic. Love doing that. But the majority of brands want to create content at scale. So it could be social media campaigns, ad campaigns. They need to test as well, right? So a lot of our brands that we work with, they do like 30 pieces of content to test the markets and not even do it publicly, just small testing. They need music for it. They're getting bogged down with licensing issues, so they're having to use players like Epidemic Sound to obviously offer stock music, but, that can only go so far. So the only natural progression is we need to create an infrastructure that allows brands to access music quickly and at scale. And that's what we've started to do. The other side of it is we are also using AI to help speed up our processes, whether it's creating the infrastructure to help them or the fan engagement tool, like I just said, Phantom. It's within us now. AI is here to stay and it's only going to get better. But what people do value, what brands do value, is your expertise. So you need someone who has 10 years, 20 years experience behind the tools we're using, because it's not as simple as, I can create a song and now I can put it to my ad. You need cut down versions, you need mixes, you need masters, you need stuff without vocals, with vocals. You need to understand the nuances behind creating music, and only experience can get you that.
That's a very, very good point. I think a lot of music creators as well will find that deeply reassuring.
Absolutely.
And it's not that they're not needed. It's just that they're needed in a slightly different way than they were perhaps before, which
Exactly.
makes perfect sense, especially when you look at, we're all consuming media differently, aren't we now? We're not all watching legacy television, etc., like we were, and our needs as consumers have changed, and therefore the needs for brands and how they use music has also then changed. And my goodness, it's changing quickly. It really is. It's kind of hard
Yeah.
to keep up sometimes, actually, isn't it? But
Yeah.
but like if you look at like production music and how well it did last year, it's because it's
Mm.
quick and easy, right? It's because
Yeah.
people can just get it. It's quick, it's easy, it's clearable. But then what they don't get is something that's bespoke or unique to them.
Yeah. Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
you've kind of got the best of both worlds. But that's why you're doing what you're doing. I mean,
Yeah. Exactly.
it's fascinating, it really is. Let me ask you about this, if I may. Now, you started as a music creator, as an artist, right? 50
Mhm.
million records sold. Goodness knows how many billion streams. Brit nominations. If you were an independent artist starting from scratch today, would you be more focused on building, a streaming audience or building a licensable catalog? And how does that answer change your product decisions at SyncIt?
Both things are true. I think you need to do both. You don't need to think about both, because I think if you think about building a licensable catalog, it won't happen the way you think it would happen. I think building an audience in general is super, super important, and knowing who you are as an artist is super, super important. I think people build publicly now as opposed to in their bedroom or in their garage. I think showing people the steps of how you made records to the point where you get to your first show, to the point where you sell out your first stadium, it's now documentation is the most important thing, not just creation. So we sell music visually now, not with our ears. We sell things with our eyes. So if I'm going to play you a song, or if I'm going to show you a song, it's a completely different emotion altogether. Most songs are hits today because of something they saw alongside that song, not just something they heard. Radio is the only time to hear something. Spotify, streaming services is the only time to hear something. But we all consume music visually now, which is the weirdest thing to say because it's like music is for your ears, but actually no, it's for your eyes now. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's completely changed.
Well, a superb answer. So insightful. Thank you so much. I'm just thinking, of emerging artists then that, that sometimes they'll come to me and they'll say, I've got this, let's say it's an EP, should I go down this route, and waterfall it as and collect it into an EP and do that? Or is this something that can be used as stock music? I might make more money, and it kind of, if there is a sort of middle piece where you go, let's make this commercial music, but let's also make it available to be licensed, then
Yeah.
artists can build that audience and do the sync
Yeah.
thing at the same time, right?
Yeah, I think you should only be doing that. I think building bodies of work will never go out of fashion. It's the most important thing. Being part of albums where I produce songs for other people and being part of singles that I do with my band, I see a clear difference between bodies of work and singles. And the single life is fantastic. Like it gets us so far. But when I've been part of albums and material that can stand the test of time and there's a journey to it. Brands really care about that. They care about licensing music that has a story behind it. And you can do that through EPs and LPs. So I think that's the most important thing to do as a new artist. How to get it out. I think too many people think about that too early. It's important to get your music heard, but it's important to know that your first song, your third song, your fifth song, it doesn't matter. The result doesn't matter because you have no idea when people will pay attention. It could be 10 songs down the road. It could be 50 songs down the road. The most important thing is the output, getting it out in front of people. They will tell you what they like and don't like, and then you can iterate from there. I think even we are, you know, we make that mistake a lot because we come from a different era where we've got to get the music right first, and then we'll go and launch this EP or then we'll go and launch these 3 singles. We have no idea what the singles are going to do unless you show someone first. So today you're able to show an audience first. Even if your audience is 25 people, that's still an audience. If 17 of them are like, yeah, this is the one, then that's the one to go with. And then you
Yeah.
grow from there. So I think we bog ourselves down too much with how do I do something? Do it and you'll find out. I think the worry is that you don't have enough songs to do or to get through after that. And what we need to be, unfortunately, today is about quality, but quantity as well. Quantity matters, unfortunately, just as much as quality does today.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, that's a fine line, isn't it, between sort of building in public and building sort of behavioural data, even mimetic data, people getting involved with things, but then also going, well, I'm going to have quite a few singles ready to go. I suppose there's a
Absolutely.
balance there, but
Yeah.
that's always been a part of the game. Um,
Yeah.
so let's look ahead then. Let's think sort of 5 years from now, right? A sports team wants to create, 10,000 personalized fan anthems for their stadium, right? A brand wants a bespoke, 30-second piece of music generated and cleared in like under a minute, right?
Yeah.
A film director wants to search through an entire catalog by emotional arc rather than genre because they don't know what genre they're looking for, but what they know what mood they're looking for. Are any
Yeah.
of those, science fiction, or are all of these things technically possible?
It's happening now, right as we speak. That's the way the world is moving. It's going towards that and it's doing it silently. And I think that's why we haven't felt the shift yet. Any major change in life actually happens slowly. It happens very slowly to the point where you don't even realize. From a war to do you remember when COVID happened, right? Instantly on the day we knew, the world didn't fall apart. It happened over months,
Yeah.
right? This is what's happening now with the encroachment on AI. It's already taking over, but you're not realizing, you're not feeling it. You still think how you released music last year is the same way you should release it this year. The game has changed completely and we're not ready for it because we don't want to be. So we're closing our eyes to the fact that AI is coming. And two, we don't even realize as well because it's happening so slowly. I think it's a beautiful thing that's happening. It's going to change everything. I mean, as did the CD for the vinyl, as did the MP3 for the CD. It's where you sit within it all. You know, are you going to be the ones trying to stop it from happening, which will, you know, you could never do enough to stop something like this? Or are you going to get behind it and be, you know, steer it, be the experts of it? Because as I said before, expertise still counts for something.
Yeah.
And we forget as musicians that we are an expert in a specific field. And what I've discovered with artists is that they don't actually know how to articulate that to people. It's like, you know, if you want a song done, you think someone like L'Oreal's just going to jump on Suno and do it. No, they're like, what Suno? And it,
Yeah.
and rightfully so. It's not their wheelhouse. So they are looking to partner with producers, with artists to help them on this journey. And we can sit in that driving seat for a long period of time. They want partners that they can have relationships with, not just a one and done, you know? So yeah.
Yeah, it's an ongoing thing. It's not like they need just one song. They're going to need a lot of music for a lot of different uses.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, no,
Absolutely.
that makes a lot of sense. Nathan, you've sold records, you've built tech, you're sitting on a growing catalog of sort of, you know, client and fan data. So as a you're uniquely positioned here, right? Because you've lived on both sides, you know, as the
Mm.
artist and also as the infrastructure builder. Um, which asset becomes more valuable over the next decade? Is it the songs, the audiences, or the data from the interactions that generates?
I would say there's two answers to this question. Your masters, the most important thing. It always has been. You know, that's why it's called a master. You know, people forget that. Is the most important thing, and an audience is the most important thing because you can leverage an audience. Because if things hit the fan, which they always do in life, you can count on your audience to pivot with you. You know, I think we didn't pay enough attention to that when we were coming through. You know, we released songs, we spoke to our audience a little bit, never did anything else other than invite them to shows and treat them really well when we saw them in public and gave them a really good performance. And that's where it ended. Today, your audience needs to be your family because they will back whatever you do. And we're in a phase of transition now. The money is not where the money was yesterday. It's now changed somewhere else. So when you move there, if you have an audience that moves with you, you're good. So yeah, I'd say the audience and the masters are the most important thing. And the reason for the masters is because it's important that you have control over your masters, or at least understand who is control of the masters so you can move that around. But a master placed on DSPs is different to it being placed on radio, it's different to it being placed on an advert, different to it being placed in a film or a game. If you have control over all of that, you now have 6 or 7 different income streams, right, from music. All we think about as artists is getting on Spotify or Apple Music and then shutting down a really big show and maybe selling some merchandise. We need to broaden our horizon. It's not there
Mm.
anymore. It's not. And if you're playing that game, you're playing it with a million other people. And that's just within your own genre.
So the ideals of the dream have evolved before us.
Absolutely. It's still the same dream. Just don't put a value behind posting your song online to gain money or, you know, just dreaming of selling out a show. Those things can still happen. Cool. We all want that. I still want it now. You know, I'm touring in Ibiza this summer. I do it for the love of it though. You know, do we make a bit of money? Of course, but you can't sustain a career unless you're one of the top 20, 30 guys and girls. It's just not doable because of the sheer volume of people making music. The barrier to entry is so low. Any geezer with a laptop now can do it. You know, any geezer with a laptop can post it on SoundCloud, it blows up, and now they've taken your spot for We Are Festival or whatever festival's coming up next. It's really now a case of being clever and putting your music in different areas and being in control of your music so that you can maneuver, you know, so
Yeah.
that you can go and get a licensing deal or speak to someone like me who can help you get on the lineup with Formula One. We worked with Silverstone year before last as well with Red Bull. as well. So they're really
Um,
into music. They're really into championing artists of all different backgrounds and giving them a spot. You know, I know all this because I'm looking for different things to do with my music and myself as an artist. And then I create long lasting relationships with the likes of Red Bull or Silverstone or L'Oreal, whoever it may be. And that's where, for me, the value lies. It's in the relationships with the people who value music the most. And it's not the industry. It's not the music business. It's the brands. It's the people that know that without music, their story sucks.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. I mean, you're saying so many things that I've been thinking for a while, and it's so useful, I think, for no, I was going to say for artists to hear what you say. I think I'd extend it beyond that. I think anybody to do with any part of any artist team to be thinking in the way that you're thinking. And actually, that maneuverability that you spoke about earlier, about having the recorded music in different positions, it's nigh on impossible to be able to do that if you don't have flexibility on ownership of that master, right? I mean, even if you don't own all of it, but if you own enough of it, or you know who the other owners are, and you know how flexible they are in working with you on new ideas and being open to it, and just knowing what that ownership looks like, that's a very, very good thing, because I think it's very easy, isn't it, for artists, especially early in their career, to sign away their IP because they need money. Um,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
they spend years then regretting it, and then go into a label services model, or whatever. We've seen that so many times in recent years, and I get it, and it makes sense. But if we think ahead of that and go, right, there's loads of artists that have done that over the years. There's a reason why, because they know what you just talked about.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so to
Exactly.
get ahead of that and go, right, hang on, can I cope without an advance, and instead just own my masters and be able to trade in the way that you're explaining, and
Yeah.
they'll reap the rewards of it. So
I know.
it
Do you know? I don't. To that point, I'm not, shitting on anyone who does a deal. Like we did a deal with Warner, and without Warner, 12, 13 years ago, we wouldn't be here today. Now, where you need to look is the retention period. How long do they own your songs for, or their portion of the master for? And how much flexibility do you have over your own music, right? Now, we've got great flexibility over our music, but Warner own a good chunk of it for a very long time. So signing a deal at the time meant that we could get on finally. We weren't great at building our own audience. We didn't really believe in ourselves in that way. So having Warner in the machine that it was back then, second to none. Never regretted it. What I do regret is not looking at the fine print a bit more and being like, that retention period is a bit high. If anyone doesn't understand, the retention period is how long they hold onto your records even after the term is done. It could be anywhere from 25 years to 50 years to in perpetuity, meaning forever. You've got to be careful of those things, because do a deal if it's, they hold on to your records retention period for 12 years. It's fine because they're giving you something, giving you money, they're giving you a platform. And sometimes, a lot of the times, it's a win. It works well. What happens after that? What happens after that deal is done? One, are you flexible with the ability to move your masters wherever you want to move them, or work with, in my case, Warner, to get more deals for that? Luckily, we have a great relationship with Warner, right? So I could just call them and say, look, FIFA want to use one of our songs. We good to go? Yeah, we're good to go. Cool. So the flexibility is there because the relationship is strong. But I know those people who've fallen out with their label, can't get them on the phone, and now they regret ever signing to them. And now, that said company still owns the masters, and they can do what they want with them, really. It's just a bit of a mess. So always, if you need to sign a deal because you feel like it's the right thing, go ahead, sign it. But please, please, please understand the retention period is the biggest thing. And who has access? Like sometimes now they're doing deals now, it has the ability to put the master wherever they want without your consent. So they
Mm.
could go for an advert in a different country. You had no idea that it was there. Like, you just need to understand those small things, because that's what makes the deal. Take the money up front. We needed it at the time, 12 years ago. It wasn't much. Like, it was literally with our first song. I think we paid that much. We paid that advance back within like 6 months. It was crazy. That's how small the advance was. But at the time, the machine really put us on and gave us an audience across the globe. And I always will thank them for that.
That's really nice to hear. Thanks for opening up about that, Nathan. It's very insightful and very useful for people to hear. What's one of the key things that you just said there as well is the idea that you still have a really good relationship with the guys at Warner, where there's not friction, right? Where because this, just in case anybody perhaps misunderstands, this is not about greed, right? This is going, I own
No,
my masters, I make all the money. It's not that, is it? It's just about the freedom of letting those masters
freedom.
find a place where they can be licensed and be licensable.
Absolutely.
And so, the fact that you've got that relationship with them, A, by the way, speaks volumes about you, and B, it is really useful for people to hear, because even if they go, oh, do you know what? Yeah, I thought I'd signed a 2-year term and there was a 20-year retention, but
Mm.
let's work with that instead of trying to challenge it. What do we do about it? Well, we work with them. How do we do that? We communicate well. And that
Yeah.
is a massive lesson in itself.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. I mean, the retention doesn't matter so much if you're working the records together. You know, we didn't ask any questions in the first 10 years because everything was going swimmingly.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah. And then when it starts to kind of, your career starts to take a different turn, you start thinking, hang on a second, how much of my own music do I actually own? And then you start looking at the fine print, you're like, damn it. But,
yeah,
but we be careful about regret, because do you really regret it? Or, are you annoyed at yourself for not doing the right deal for yourself at the time? Is just, the label are going to do what they do. You and your lawyer should do what you do. Protect yourselves at all costs. Don't take so much money up front. If you can drop the retention period, make sure, even with your management, make sure the sunset clauses aren't too high, meaning the terms after you terminate, they could be 8 years, they could be 10 years, try and get that down to 3 to 5. These are things that you need to speak about with a really good lawyer. And lawyers are annoying because they don't care about what's happening now. They care about what's happening in 5 years' time. And you're not there. You're thinking, how much money am I getting now? Where's the money now? I want that now. And it's
yeah,
like, all right, cool. You want that money now. Let me help you think about 5 years' time, and let me put all these little clauses in so that in 5 years' time, you don't come back to me and say, oh my God, I can't believe you made me sign that deal.
yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Do you know, it's so funny, right? Because I used to be the artist, and now I'm on the other side of it, and I'm
Mm,
telling people all the time, think long term, think about what this might be in 10 years or 20 years, and of course people
yeah,
aren't always doing that, and I say to my wife, I say, I wasn't thinking that when I was in my 20s. Like, you just don't,
you
because
don't.
you're not thinking
It,
like that. So
and also, it's unsexy, isn't it? It's like, who the
yeah,
hell wants to think about retention periods and all this stuff that actually sucks the fun and joy out of making music and becoming who you want to become?
yeah,
I don't blame artists for not thinking that, but if you have a manager, they 100% should only be thinking that. If you have a good lawyer, 100% they should only be thinking that. So it frees up your brain space to enjoy what you do best. You know,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
the important thing.
Yeah, and then for those artists that do know that do think ahead to that do that, can then entice a better manager to work with them, because they'll, be like, oh, okay, yeah, this artist knows the business. This is good. We don't have to educate them. Let's work. Okay,
Yeah.
So
And unfortunately, that often happens after you've been stung or after you've had 5, 6, 7 years in the business, and you'd be like, I'm not going to let that happen to me again. Normally, it's a lesson learned from
yeah.
experience. So,
Yeah, no, that's very true. Nathan, thank you so much for your time today. You are a true gentleman, and you are so incredibly impressive. Congratulations for all
oh,
that you have achieved and all that you will continue to achieve. You're a top man. I really appreciate your time.
you're going to make me cry now. Stop it. Thank you so much. But it's been an absolute pleasure. I'd love to do this again when we got some more updates for you. Thank
You'll
you.
be welcome anytime, mate. Okay, there you go. What a dude. What a dude. What a lovely guy as well. Like, you can do you know, let's just go back to just, come away from business for a minute, right? Which, I know this is a music business podcast, but music's about people, isn't it? And about moments and about events and about songs and things that touch people and move people. And for all of those things to work, we need people, right? Special people. And Nathan Duvall is one of those people. There are so many strings to his bow. He's so impressive on so many levels. But I think more than anything else, he's just a lovely guy, right? He's the kind of person that, like, let's say it's Warner's, as he was talking about, and whoever he's talking to, and his name pops up. I bet that he's never the kind of guy where people go, oh, I bet it'll be. Ah, because he's that. He's special. He's wonderful. And I hope that, well, I know that that came across to you, right? So I hope that you take a look at what he's building, because anyone can be a part of it. This is not a closed door exercise. In fact, it's the polar opposite. It's about working to bring out the best of everybody, to find a home for their music. You know, a lot of the things that he's doing is working for brands, but as he says it himself, he needs music to be able to do that. Music, so much music is needed all the time. And I think sometimes it's easy for music creators to not necessarily always understand their value. And I want you to know, and so does Nathan, and so do many other people, that there are an enormous amount of people in various aspects of music and in media that really, really value and need music, right? And yes, I am talking to you when I say that, right? So have a think about all this, let it marinate in your mind, and let it help you to evolve your ideals moving forward, because my goodness me, there's a lot changing, isn't there? And it's hard to keep up with, and I know it's overwhelming, and hey, that's why I'm here, to try and break these things down, to try, if I can, to simplify things as much as I can in an ever flowing, ever evolving, rapidly changing world. I know there's a lot to keep up with, but I think that what we spoke about today could be something that's open to you moving forward. So have a think about that. Until then, have a great day, everybody. Thank you for being here and a part of this community, and may the force be with you.